Good afternoon. My name is Reverend Dr. Gina Jacob Strain, and I am the Executive Director of American Baptist Women's Ministries.
And I'm Reverend Lathelma Yimbata, Associate Executive Director of American Baptist Women's Ministries, and we are your co-hosts for Iron Sharpens Iron Table Talk. Iron Sharpens Iron is our Women's History Month program. AB women leaders, partners, and friends will be sharing their iron sharpens iron moments and advice. Be sure to tune in every Monday at 12:30 for our talks. Please share your iron sharpens iron moment in our Facebook comments. You can email them to us, whichever you prefer.
Today, we are so excited to have three esteemed guests with us. Reverend Lauren Ng, Director of Leadership Empowerment at American Baptist Home Mission Societies, Reverend Brittany Graves, Associate Coordinator of Public Witness and Advocacy, also for American Baptist Home Mission Societies, and Reverend Beatrix Weil, Chaplain of Rhodes College. All right, ladies, let's not keep the audience waiting. Let's share our iron sharpens iron moment. Brittany, we'd love to hear from you first.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I'm grateful for this space. I'm grateful for this time and for this invitation to be here in this moment. My iron sharpens iron moment is more contextual. As soon as I heard the question posed, I immediately already knew what I was going to share. And a lot of it is because of the time that we're in. I feel like there is a lot shifting and changing, and especially being in the pandemic, it has disrupted the flow of many, and we are all showing up in new and creative ways and leaning into a very different space than what we would have known years prior. So for me, my iron sharpens iron moment is regarding a good friend of mine who is actually in my hometown in Texas, where I am, even though I did relocate to Pennsylvania. And for me, that is one of my good friends whose name is Aurelia Pratt. She is a lead pastor here in town. And when I relocated to the Pennsylvania area, in the midst of not knowing a pandemic was coming, for me, that kind of didn't give me the opportunity to make a lot of connections with people. And I'm sure we all feel that shift where our connections are shifting and changing. But somehow we were able to stay connected and even deepen our relationship and friendship. So for me, we had a lot of great conversations that regarded the time and lending space for each other to tell our full truths. So while it might be difficult to connect in this time, it's been really meaningful for me to find relationships that I can be my full self and also show up for another person as well. So for me, that's been my big iron sharpens iron moment. In the midst of me working in public witness and advocacy and her working as a lead pastor, the conversations that we've started to dream and accelerate on what we've been sharing. And somehow it has formed into a brand new podcast that I'm super excited about. And I think it just shows how far collaboration can go if you just spend the time cultivating the space and cultivating in relationship with each other.
Thanks so much for sharing, Brittany. I really resonated with that. Having your tribe in the midst of this really difficult time is so important, and it and some opportunities that have presented themselves in this time is being able to have time to be creative and to innovate with one another. And so that's kind of what I hear your iron sharpening iron moment is the opportunity to dream and to dream with someone who believes in your dreams and allows you to be fully yourself and fully present. And so that's such a gift. And so thank you so much for sharing.
Thank
Now,
you.
yeah, of course. Now we would love to hear from Lauren, your iron sharpens iron moment.
Thank you. And before I share, I do want to give a plug for the podcast that Brittany's talking about, Nuance Tea podcast, and she didn't say it. So go head over to Facebook or wherever you listen to your streaming podcasts and subscribe. So it's incredible, incredible. Thanks for having me, everyone. My story about Iron Sharpens Iron is about my good friend, sister, colleague, Reverend Dr. Marie Onwubuariri, who currently serves as the Associate General Secretary of Mission Resource Development for ABC. And she and I go way back. We went to the same seminary out here in California, Berkeley School of Theology, became godparents for each other's kids, entered into this awesome relationship with our partners and our families and all that. And somewhere along the line, we had actually started a covenant couples group. It was part of the Ministers Council Together in Ministry initiative. And so it's actually for women in ministry, for female clergy with our husbands as the four lay persons. And so we've obviously developed really lifelong relationships that support one another in our ministry, our work, and in our marriages. And at some point, Marie and her husband, and my husband and I decided to enter into a covenantal relationship as two couples. And what that means is that more than Marie contends for me as her friend, she's contending for my marriage. And she's contending for, for that relationship. And I'll never forget, there was this day, and I was super mad at my husband. And who knows? I don't even remember what it was about anymore, but just goes to show it was probably not that big of a deal. But I was like, not wanting to talk. He had called me and texted me a couple times, and I was just like, not going to give you the moment right now, not going to give you the time. And I called Marie, and I expected her to do what I wanted her to do, which is take my side, agree that he was the one in the wrong there, and just kind of like validate my giving him the cold shoulder for a while. And she didn't do that. She said, I hear you, I understand you, I know why you're frustrated. Let me help you see it from Daniel's perspective, potentially, right? She shared that, and I was like, what are you doing? And she said, again, let me remind you, I'm not contending just for you, I'm contending for your marriage and for that relationship. And so what an incredible moment for me. And it's been reciprocal and mutual. So, whether it's about our relationships, whether it's about our kids, or it's about our vocation and pursuit of call, with every kind of major, shift in our lives, we've been able to come to each other and to the best of our ability, offer objective feedback that is born out of trust that's been cultivated over 15 years. So she's my iron sharpens iron person. It's not just one moment. It's been, like I said, a decade and a half of that. But I look forward to many more moments like that with her.
Lauren, thank you so much for sharing. I feel a thread being pulled through here from Brittany to you, and that notion of being able to share your truth, being able to be transparent, and knowing that sometimes that comes with not the response that you might expect. Right?
That's right.
I have a good friend who, whenever she wants to tell me something difficult, she says, may I have permission to speak frank? And I know that I don't have to give her permission because it's coming. What she has to say is coming next, whether I say yes or not.
Right.
But that ability to be transparent, that's a gift. That is a gift that you, the two of you, have given each other. And it's wonderful to be able to have a friendship that can be honest in that way. Someone who can say, you know what, you out of your lane right here, or no, you know what, you're not really right about this. Like, I hear you and I feel you, but you're not really right. And I'm not going to say that you're right because I love you too much.
That's right.
And
Yeah,
so
amen.
I think that is really just an awesome, and I think that's a special bond that you have, and it's a gift that when women can support women in that way, that it is a treasure. It is certainly a
Absolutely.
treasure. So thank you so much for sharing with us and giving us your iron sharpens iron moment. We're going to move on now to Chaplain Beatrix. and see if you will share with us your Iron Sharpens Iron moment.
Thank you so much for that invitation to share and just inviting me to be part of this conversation this morning, afternoon, wherever you are tuning in from. Yeah, so actually one story, when Reverend Lethelma invited me to speak on the topic, one story came, like, just jumped to mind really quickly. And that was a time in seminary. I was involved with the Women's Center, which was just an organization on campus. And we were trying to brainstorm ideas for tackling the issue that in some of our courses, the male students would kind of dominate the chances to speak during small group discussion. So we were saying, well, we're just brainstorming, problem solving. We said, what if we we simulated these small groups in like a safe environment with men who we recognize don't do that to us, and will like act out how do we support each other in that situation, and how do we advocate for ourselves, and what can we do to support each other in that space, that kind of thing. And the white women in this planning meeting were like going off like, this is a great idea, blah, 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 like going off into space. And then the Black women in the room said, hang on one second. Someone who is safe to you is not necessarily going to be safe to me. And something about that clicked for me in a way that I had probably people had given me the opportunity to learn that before, but something about the language that she used clicked for me, maybe because I'm kind of safety oriented. And that sharpened me because it made me think like, oh, someone who's safe for me might not be safe for you. Like some of the white men who I had in mind, who I would feel comfortable like in a play or acting out situation of asserting myself, is not going to be necessarily safe for somebody who is Black or somebody who is from a different background than me, because of the way that they interact with Black people in the same classroom. So even though they're respecting white women, they might not be respecting Black women. And yeah, something about the language maybe was able to click into place and shift for me. So this was a couple years after in the like when white people discover that racism exists, there's kind of a push and pull, and I was a couple of years into that push and pull. But this was an early moment of like, oh, I'm still not getting it, am I? I still have work to do, don't I? And then I think that that shift helped me throughout the rest of seminary really start to work the muscle of using a lens of how is this affecting people in the room or people not in the room who don't have the same background as me. And it's, not to say that the iron over here has not been further sharpened by other interactions and is continually being sharpened by other interactions, but that one, just that interaction was an especially important moment for me in just the paradigm shift of how I saw the classroom. And that's, I serve as a college chaplain now, so that's affected me even in my ministry today. I'm still using how I was sharpened in that 2-minute encounter, during a random brainstorming session in the basement of the student center on campus. So that was a time when this iron was sharpened by another iron.
Thanks so much for taking us back to the classroom and sharing a shift. And sometimes it doesn't have to, you give a great example that it doesn't have to be something major, right? But you were listening, right? And sometimes we miss our moments because we're not necessarily listening. So that is really an awesome And just, an awesome opportunity for you, but awesome a sharing for us to remind us of how we can be shaped or shifted in small moments if we're paying attention. And to be sensitive, cultural competency is something that we work on our entire lives. I don't think you ever get to a point that you feel like, okay, I got it and I understand it completely. But being able to be mindful and intentional, as you were able to do in terms of how you look at things and the lens that you were able to sort of notice in that moment and use going forward, was certainly a wonderful blessing. And thanks so much for sharing that with us, because it reminds us that we need to be present.
Thank you. Yes.
Before we move on to our 3 pieces of advice, I wanted to invite Lauren or Brittany, if any of the stories, and Beatrix, if any of the stories that were shared, if you wanted to provide some conversation or feedback to one another about what resonated with you, did anything else come to your mind? Just wanted to invite you to also engage with one another's stories.
Yeah, I mean, I love both your stories have raised things for me in my spirit. But I'll say something about Beatrix, Chaplain Beatrix, what you just shared. Gosh, that seminary experience really teaches us a lot, doesn't it? And what you said, I was nodding in agreement, because we're all on that lifelong journey, right? We all gain a new perspective each and every day, where we're like, there's still so much work to do. There's still so many other ways to look at this. So many other things for me to learn. It reminds me of a time when I was in seminary that we did a fishbowl experience, and we had our classroom was in that particular class was about 50% white, 50% Black or African American, and me. And so the instructor put all the Black or African American students in the inner circle, and told everyone else to create the outer circle, concentric circle around them. And so we were going to have this fishbowl experience and listen to these Black and African American students share their experience of the subject matter. And I was sitting in my seat and I was kind of looking left and right, and I was like, well, I definitely don't belong in that circle, but I'm not so sure I belong in this one either. So I raised my hand and I said, excuse me, do I just have this question. I don't really know where I'm going to go. And he goes, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I didn't think about that. So of course, my brothers and sisters, my Black African American peers, brothers and sisters are like, come with us. And I was like, no, I don't think that's quite. They were trying to be inclusive. And then the white, peers were like, oh, no, you can stay with us. And so he said, move the chair to where you feel it makes sense. So I just shifted my chair up a few inches. So I was kind of in another in between concentric circle by myself. But that's another one of those moments where you said, maybe it was something about the language. Maybe it was something about how she worded it that it just sort of clicked. And that was an experience for me that was quite similar, where it was like maybe seeing it in its physical form, actually being in chairs in these circles helped me realize, gosh, I am yet another category, right? And we can look at categories in 100,000 different ways, but something about that clicked for me. And that's been a learning or kind of an insight into my own identity that I've carried with me since then. So just thank you for helping me think back to that memory.
Yeah.
Did you have anything you wanted to share? Oh, Beatrix, did you want to go?
No, Brittany, I saw that you unmuted.
Oh, okay. Yes, I can share quickly. I also wanted to add on to what you mentioned, Beatrix, in relationship to what you mentioned in this moment where some folks, some white folks might say to themselves, oh yeah, I still do have work to do. I just think that that's a meaningful moment, because I feel like if that moment is never had or identified, then that shows that there isn't continued work happening. So even though it might seem small or even irritating or whatever emotion that comes up with that, I think it's still very useful to have that moment. And Lauren, I also wanted to add on to what you mentioned in relationship to the in-between, because, oh my goodness, I feel like there's so much strife, especially in America, related racism, to injustice, even to what is happening in our time related to that, as so much comes up and is, yeah, something you can't get away from. Like, it is very present and you can't help but notice it. I mean, I guess maybe some do, but I think because of the historical nature and strife and racism between Black and white, I think there's a missed opportunity a lot of the time to realize that there are not just Black and white folks, that there are people of color who also experience racism and have different stories and experiences to share related to it.
Thanks so much for you all sharing your feedback. I feel like this conversation, like what is iron sharpens iron, and for me, from listening to your stories, it's about raising our consciousness and being given a space to transform ourselves, a space to make mistakes, right? Like that. Oh, we were all chattering and not listening, but you gave me enough grace to correct me or give me a new perspective, a reframing of life. And now I can go out and flourish wherever God has called me to. And so that's such an encouraging thing, and an encouraging message for us to take away, to hopefully that many women can find spaces of trust and support where they can be transformed and they can flourish. So we would love to hear your 3 pieces of advice that you've learned throughout your life, that may sharpen our listeners and viewers. Lauren, I'm going to bring it back to you to start us off with the advice.
Okay. Well, I made a long list of different pieces, and then you said whittle it down to 3. So I'm going to give you the 3 that I narrowed it down to. One is something that I say a lot of times to my teammates and my colleagues, and which is help me see what I'm not seeing. And it's who knows who kind of first started to frame it that way, but I just think that that's such an important question for a leader to ask constantly, in an effort towards self-awareness. So in almost any situation, whether it's small or big, I'll just say to people I trust, help me see what I'm not seeing. So that's one that really sharpens me. Another one is, what is this person meant to teach me? Obviously, that is related a lot, oftentimes, to conflictual interactions. And what I like about it is that, sure, God knows, everyone who's going to come in and out of our lives. That doesn't mean that God chooses for negative, harmful, hurtful people to be in our lives. But when I ask the question, what is this person meant to teach me? I feel like it gives me a sense of agency and empowerment. To say that person hurt me, I don't necessarily have to agree with that person. God grieves over my interaction with that person with me, but I have the agency to then say, well, what am I going to learn from that? So that's helpful. And then my last one was something that's passed down from my mom, who is an entrepreneur in her own right, which is just like, if it doesn't exist, create it. She started her own business when I was a young girl, and I then decided my club at my high school growing up, there was no Asian student union. So my best friend at the time, who was Korean and American, she and I were like, we're going to start it. So we started an Asian students club, and I feel like I've been carrying that, sharpening advice into my adulthood too, where it's just like, doesn't exist, man, make it happen. So
that last piece just makes me think about the incubator. Right, I'm like, oh, that fits. Like, it makes so much sense to me now that's the ministry that you're leading. So
yeah, thank you. Yeah, plug for the co-creators incubator, co-creatorsincubator.com, ABHMS, Missional Entrepreneurs. Thank you for bringing that up.
Yes.
And what a freeing affirmation. I mean, just all 3, but certainly sometimes that's a great critical thinking, sort of problem solving way, that you see something, and if it doesn't exist, well, create it. It's really affirming and freeing, because you never know what you might be able to produce. So that those are awesome.
Yes, I just wanted to say too, Lauren, about your pieces of advice. It's an orientation to life, right? Will help me to see what I'm not seeing. What is this person meant to teach me? If it doesn't exist, create it. It's a way of living, and I really love what you shared. Beatrix, will
That's
you go
right.
ahead?
Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah. Okay. Oh, and I just love the idea of like, if it's not there, build it yourself. That's awesome, Lauren. Okay. First, and I learned this during the pandemic, listen to your body. Has been really important for me for as a survival technique, getting through this pandemic. Like sometimes I feel like I really need to curl up in a ball and sit on my couch. And at the start of the pandemic, I was like, no, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. Because if I do it, then I'm never like, that's it. Like, I'm just going to sit there for a couple years. But if I listen to my body and just like, yeah, sit on the couch and roll up, like the feeling usually passes. Like I am present to my body and my body's needs. And then my body is ready to move forward after that, every single time so far. So listen to your body. Figure out how you learn and then adapt your lifestyle to that. So for me, like I don't retain information. So I learned that I need to like write things down. And if I'm reading a book, for work, sometimes I read books, like I need to take notes, and figuring out how to take notes that actually makes sense to me was really helpful for me. And the last one is probably the most practical. If you don't know about the snooze and the send later features in your email, I'm about to blow your mind, because in Gmail, I'm not going to get to the specifics of how you do it. So you just like have to search the internet for help for the particulars of your email server. But in Gmail, if I get an email and I'm like, this is important, but I can't deal with this today, you can snooze the email so that it'll go to the top of your inbox in a week or at 2 p.m. on Tuesday after this happens. And then the send later function. So like I have a recurring meeting every Thursday, and every Thursday at 6:15 p.m., 15 minutes before my event, an email goes out that has the link to it. And it's like, reminder, you're supposed to show up in 15 minutes. And that's just at the beginning of the semester. I line them all up, one for each week. And then like, I don't have to worry about it. I don't have to spiral think about it in the shower every single day. Like, oh my God, I can't forget to send that 6:15 Thursday email. I don't have to think about that anymore. I am liberated because I don't have to do that anymore, because I discovered the send later function, your schedule email function in your email. So I commend that to you as something that might give you peace of mind and more freedom.
So I confess, I love the send later feature.
Send later.
Love it.
Amazing.
And it's so freeing because it gets it off my mind and I don't have to worry about it. I have not tried the snooze, but I can see, sometimes we are so compelled to respond to everything immediately. And sometimes you need to exhale, you need a moment. And so having that, I think is really is just incredible. I I was a education major and have taught a lot of classes, and I think knowing your learning style will change your life.
Mm-hmm.
And I love the advice that you said about knowing it and then kind of rebuild your life around that so that this is the way that you take in information. Everybody has one, and it everybody has a way that they best learn, and when we know that, we reduce our stress. We can be more in the moment. We can take in information and use it in a way that's useful. So these are great iron sharpens iron skills, because some people don't even realize that they have a learning style, right? And my style is not your style. My learning style is not your learning style, and one is not better than the other. They're just different. And so thank you. Those are all great pieces of advice as we try to manage often like 500 things at one time, right? And so these are tips to prevent the balls from falling down and hitting us on the head. So thank you. I really appreciate that. So Brittany, you wanna take us home here with your 3 pieces of advice?
Sure, I would love to share, and I'm so grateful for the things that have already been shared. It's just fun and unique to see how each of us show up in the world, and also what resonates with us and what will resonate hopefully with a lot more. But for me, my first advice I would give is to take seriously your gifts, whether that is you listening, whether that is us collectively in this group space. I think that is something I have nourished over the years. And I remember being in school in seminary where I had transitioned from undergrad to where I was studying business and then going into seminary, which was quite a shift. And I remember in my first year, one of my professors, she wrote down, "You're such a great writer." And when I saw that, I thought to myself, oh, wow, that's really cool. She must tell everybody that. So I like dismissed the compliment that she gave me. But more and more as I've honed into my own gifts and knowing that writing is one of them, so much has unfolded for me. So whether that is free writing in the morning just to like clear my head or brain dump has been really meaningful for me. But even through that, whether it's writing for preaching or whether it's writing for poetry, I love poetry and I love spoken word. So the more that has shown up for me, the more I've been able to create space for myself based off of the gifts that I have. So if writing is not one of the things that is true to you, find what gifts you have for yourself and hone in on them. I think that it will do the world some good and nourish your soul along with it. So that is my first piece of advice. And I think to go along with that, the second one is to lean into trusting your intuition. And I think a lot of that goes with even what Beatrix, with what you said as far as knowing what's happening in your body. For me, I've noticed, for instance, if I am writing or if I'm outside in nature or if I'm doing something that just cultivates me, I get these small little nudges from spirit that show up, and I'm like, oh yes, it's just this divine moment where I can lean into trusting myself, trusting in the divine that moves through me, and just bringing more life and light to the world. So that's my second advice. And my last advice, which I actually didn't have written down before this very moment, it just kind of came to me. But the third one is to speak your truth. And that has been paramount in my own life, and a lot of the reason why I have landed in advocacy related work. For me, I have learned to speak my truth, whereas I might not have done that early on in life, or that might not have been something I saw in my family to be able to know how to do, but to cultivate that within myself, to speak my truth has opened me up to, yeah, a whole world of just standing firm for who I am, for what I believe, and then also standing up for others and those that really need their voices heard as well, and to uplift and give opportunity for that. So those are my three.
Thanks so much, Brittany. Your point of leaning into our intuition really resonated with me, because particularly as women, you know, in society, we're taught to be suspicious of our feelings and our intuition, and just to be suspicious of ourselves in general. That we can't trust ourselves to guide us to some higher form of truth, or to guide us in the right direction. Right? Spirit gives us all the direction that we need, and innocent within us. So I just love that you affirmed um, us as women to really listen to ourselves, that there is truth inside of us in the many ways that we come to find that, whether it's a feeling that you get in your gut, or, you know, just a yearning, whatever it is. I think just being, transforming that idea that we should be suspicious of ourselves, but to really fully trust ourselves is very empowering to remember. I wish we had more time to dig deeper into each one of our pieces of advice. And we want to continue this conversation through social media on Facebook. And I'm sure that our speakers who are active on social media would love to engage or dialogue with you if you want to talk more about the points that they raised. Because I know I had a question about speaking your truth. I'm like, well, what if you're afraid? Or like, what if it's dangerous? I'm like, there's so many layers to that. And I'm like, oh, I just want to get into that. But if you want to have that conversation with Brittany on Facebook, I hope that I'm just putting you out there. They're gonna start searching you on Facebook.
No, please.
Throw it in the comments, and I'm sure that she will love to have some more dialogue with you. So thank you so much for joining us for this week's Iron Sharpens Iron. We would love to hear how you enjoyed the conversation. Please share it in the comments and keep up with what's happening with ABWM by visiting our website at abwomensministries.org. And I want to just throw it back to my fearless leader, Reverend Dr. Gina Jacobs-Strain, for any closing comments that she may want to share.
I just want you to know that I appreciate your stories. I appreciate your wisdom today. And I am grateful for you speaking your truth, for telling us the things that were close to your heart and to your mind. I know that there are many women of all ages that will be blessed by what you shared with us today. We don't take it for granted that you took this time. I feel like this was a God appointed, anointed time for us to be together. And so I know that others will be blessed by what you have shared. And you've given each of us, each of you has given everyone something to think about, right? Something to ponder. And I think that's an important piece of iron sharpening iron. You need to sometimes have a little something that you have to ponder, something you have to think about, something that may affirm you, but also maybe prick your consciousness a little bit to say, you know what, this is a place that I can do better. So thank you so much. I'm blessed by your presence, blessed by your gifts, and just so happy that you were here with us today. May God continue to bless each of you.